In a small shanty on the edge of the city, the morning sun didn't shine through windows, but through the narrow gaps in the corrugated metal walls. For young Jane, this was home. Every morning, Jane performed a ritual of resilience. She pulled on a school uniform that had faded from navy to a dusty gray, stepped into shoes with soles so thin she could feel every pebble on the road, and slung a bag over her shoulder that had been stitched and patched by her mother's tired hands. Her father, Samuel, was a carpenter with calloused hands and a heart of gold, but work was scarce. Her mother, Elena, spent 10 hours a day in a humid garment factory. Together, they earned just enough to keep rice on the table and the roof over their heads. The week of the final examinations arrived, and Jane faced a silent crisis. Her only pencil was a mere nub, less than 2 inches long, so short she could no longer grip it to form letters. That evening, she sat at their small wooden table, looking at the tiny piece of graphite with tears in her eyes. "I can't write with this anymore, Father," she whispered to her father. Samuel searched his pockets, but they were empty. He looked at the kitchen jar. The few coins inside were strictly for tomorrow's bread. He looked at his daughter's downcast face and then at his carpentry workbench in the corner. "Wait here, Jane," he said softly. He picked up a scrap of cedar wood. With the precision of a master craftsman, he whittled a slender handle. He hollowed out the tip, carefully fitted the tiny pencil stub into the wood, and secured it with a drop of resin and a tight binding of twine. He sanded it until it was smooth to the touch. "It isn't a new pencil," Samuel said, handing it to her. "But it has a long handle now. You hold it tight, and you write your future." The walk to school felt longer than usual. When Jane entered the classroom and placed her extended pencil on the desk, the room went silent. Then, a ripple of snickering began. "What is that, Jane?" "A magic wand for beggars," laughed Marco, the wealthiest boy in class, brandishing a set of expensive mechanical pencils. "Look at that pathetic stick." Another girl chimed in. "If you're too poor to buy a pencil, maybe you're too poor to be in school." The laughter grew into a roar. Jane felt her face heat up, her heart stinging from the cruelty. She looked down at her old shoes, wishing the floor would swallow her. "Quiet." The sharp voice of Miss Reyes, their teacher, cut through the noise. She walked to Jane's desk, looking at the wooden extension. While the students expected a scolding, Miss Reyes simply placed a hand on Jane's shoulder. "A pencil is only as good as the mind that moves it. Begin your exam." Jane began to write, but her vision was blurred. Fat, heavy tears fell from her eyes, splashing onto the rough newsprint of the exam paper. She wiped them away with her sleeve, her hand trembling as she gripped the wooden handle her father had carved. "I will show them," she thought. "I will make my parents proud." The bullying didn't stop at the bell. Outside the gates, the whispers followed her, "Short pencil Jane," and "pathetic." She ran all the way home and collapsed into her mother's arms. "They laughed at me, Mother. They laughed at Father's gift." Elena held her tightly, her voice firm. "Jane, listen to me. No situation, no matter how poor, can hinder a heart that is determined. That short pencil isn't a sign of shame, it's a sign of a father's love. One day, that pencil will make you shine brighter than all of them." Jane wiped her eyes. She stopped looking at the pencil as a symbol of poverty and started seeing it as a tool of defiance. A week later, the atmosphere in the classroom was thick with anticipation. Marco and his friends were already boasting about their scores, confident that their expensive tutors and supplies had guaranteed them the top spot. Miss Reyes stood at the front, a stack of papers in her hand. "This was a difficult exam," she began. "Many of you did well. But one student achieved a perfect score. Not just in math, but in every subject." The class went still. The highest score go to Jane, Miss Reyes announced, her voice beaming with pride. The silence was deafening. Marco looked at his mechanical pencil as if it had betrayed him. The students who had laughed now looked at their desks, faces flushed with shame. Miss Reyes began to clap, and slowly, the rest of the class joined in. Jane sat there, stunned, her hand instinctively touching the wooden extension of the pencil in her bag. Jane didn't stop there. She carried that wooden-handled pencil through the rest of high school. It became her lucky charm, a reminder of where she came from. On her graduation day, she stood on the stage as the valedictorian. After the ceremony, Miss Reyes and Jane's parents met her in the hallway. Her father handed her a small, velvet-lined box. Inside was a professional drafting pencil and a high-quality fountain pen. "For college," Samuel said, his eyes misty. "You've outgrown the scrap wood, Jane." "I'll never outgrow what it taught me, Father," Jane replied. Years later, Jane didn't just become a successful professional, she became a renowned architect. She was inspired by the way her father could take a piece of scrap wood and turn it into something functional and beautiful. Every time she sits at her drafting table to design a skyscraper or a home, she remembers the short pencil that started it all. She learned that it doesn't matter how short your tools are, as long as your dreams are long enough to reach the sky.
If you want more life stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.